Everyone. It's great to be here. Hopefully everyone enjoyed some good food out there, and we'll try and keep this post-lunch session lively and entertaining. It's my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panel. We've got some great folks who are spending the next hour with us today to talk about the linkage between customer success and growth. And Nick talked about this earlier today, that churn matters. It's something we all focus on, we care about. But at the end of the day, what customer success is really all about is driving growth. And how do we leverage the data we have, the interactions we have with our customers to drive new sales, advocacy, upsells, new product, et cetera, et cetera. So that's going to be the topic of today's panel. And so I'd like to welcome our panelists to come up on stage. And I think we've got a slide with everyone's names on there. We've got Olga Narvskaia, who's with Dropbox, Kevin Lynch with Adobe, and Marcus Bragg with Zendesk. Well, thank you all for being here today. Why don't we first start with some quick introductions. Maybe each of you can introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your company and how you think about managing customer success, your role inside the organization, and then we can take it from there. Marcus, you want to start?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having us.
Glad you could make it.
So my name is Marcus Bragg. I run sales, customer success, and biz dev at Zendesk. Zendesk is in the business of customer service. We have the fun of helping over 57,000 customers. I was here last year. It's good to be back again. And last year we talked about 40,000 customers. So it's been a good year in helping customers like Adobe and like Dropbox, and hopefully lots of others here in the audience. For Zendesk, customer success really started from the beginning 7 years ago, before there were any sales reps, right? It was about great product, and it was about great support. And for us, we have to think about all of the mom and pop 1 and 2, 3 agent shops, all the way up to the Adobes and Ubers of the world that we work with. So I think today's panel will be good because we all have this kind of diversity of customers to support and make sure they're successful and scale. And so we like to start with the data, both from support and product, and think about that onboarding experience, but then also how do we move into the very high-touch aspects of traditional enterprise support.
Makes sense. Thanks, Marcus. Kevin.
Great. So I'm Kevin Lynch. I'm Senior Vice President and General Manager of Adobe's Document Cloud. And Adobe has basically 3 clouds today. We have the Creative Cloud, where we're reimagining the creative process. We have the Document Cloud, where we're streamlining typical paper processes in a company, and that's what I run. And then we have the Marketing Cloud, where we're taking the science behind analytics and everything to do with digital marketing to make it automated in a company to really streamline that process. Those are the 3 areas of Adobe's business today. And what's been really interesting is we've been transforming. So, how many people have heard of Photoshop? Anybody? Yeah, Photoshop and Acrobat, right? That's what people know Adobe for. But over the last 4 or 5 years, we've really been transforming to a more service-oriented business, right? So not just shrink-wrap software where you kind of drive by, sell it, and then see you later. We're now in the services business with all these cloud businesses, and we really have to transform as a company to thinking about the entire customer lifecycle journey, right? From prospecting, we use our own dog food, so to speak, or drink our own champagne with the Marketing Cloud, but prospecting, onboarding, getting electronic signatures signed for contracts to streamline the journey for the customer. And then customer success, right? How do we bring all this data together and do it efficiently? Because we have a wide spectrum of customers. We have over 1 billion reader users out there across all devices and platforms, all the way up to very high multi-million-dollar, $20 million contracts for our Marketing Cloud. And so we have to manage that entire process across all routes to market, and we need intelligent dashboards and data analytics to make smart decisions.
Thanks, Kevin. Olga?
Hi, my name is Olga and I'm with Dropbox. Dropbox, as you probably know or have heard and hopefully are using, it is a home for your life's work and memories in the cloud. And I see some of my team there. Hi, guys. Like these folks, we do have a very diverse group of customers at Dropbox. We have over 300 million users now globally. About 70% of our user base is outside of the US. And these customers range from basic users who are on the free package to pro users who are paying us as individuals, and to Dropbox for business customers who go all the way from 5-person teams to multi-thousand deployments at large-scale lighthouse kinds of customers. My team is called Online Revenue Operations, and we touch basically all of these users at scale and high touch when we can. And the idea is that we are trying to build sustainable, committed relationships with our customers globally. To that end, we onboard customers, just as you mentioned. We try to engage them throughout their life cycle. We help them when they need help. And then ultimately, we hope that because they're happy and because the product is giving them something that they want, as well as the experience, they stay with us longer and they expand their usage of the product. And through that means we contribute to the company's success, because when customers stay, we're a subscription business, and expand their usage, the valuation of the company ultimately increases.
Great. Thank you so much. Olga, I'd love to start with you, just given the scale that you talked about. How do you at Dropbox think about managing these interactions? You have 300 million customers, you have big ones, you have small ones. How do you think about even the thought of managing all of those interactions over the course of that life cycle? Seems incredibly daunting. How do you guys tackle that issue?
Daunting or very happy, right? Because we get to actually talk to these customers. When I started at Dropbox, I actually was on the user operations team, and I used to do, help 100 people a week. That was a highlight of my week, actually. But to answer your question, I think first you start with principles, and some of the principles we talk about are all of our users are people and are users, regardless of how much money they pay or don't pay us, right? And that means that we need to help and engage and work with all of them. That's one principle. A similar principle can be applied globally. International users are people too. We are headquartered in San Francisco, but we have, a lot of our customers, the majority of our customers are not in the US. And so how do we quite literally speak their language, given the resources that we have? On the other hand, it's also clear that we cannot provide the same exact level of service to all of our users. While some of our largest deployments will get high-touch account management because that's what they expect and because that's what they're paying for, we cannot provide the same kind of thing for a basic user. Having said that, when basic users have questions, we need to be able to talk to them, right, and to work with them. And so we basically employ, I think the interesting part about customer success nowadays is that it employs methods from operations, where you have to think about one-to-many and one-to-one, and how do you do all that? Marketing, which is the proactive and reactive outreach, and then sales techniques when you're talking about upsell, retention, et cetera.
That's great. And I think that's a great framework to think about it, which is incorporating techniques in operations, marketing, and sales inside your customer success function. Kevin, maybe you can talk about that a little bit more. I mean, how have you guys thought about incorporating marketing techniques inside your customer success organization? And my understanding is you also have a pretty broad range of size of users and level of touch that you can provide. Yeah, sure. We do have a very wide range of customer base, like I said before, from starting with 1 billion readers all the way up to $20 million customers. And then we also have many customers which are multiple customers of different products and services. So we have to be careful. We have to segment and really be clear that we don't bombard them with the wrong message at the right time. So, for us, the marketing aspect is very important, and it's something we like to do. It's something we do. We have our marketing cloud. We want to market to our own customers as well for that entire lifecycle journey. So we actually, even in our customer support group, we actually have marketing people that report into our customer support group, because the messaging you want to give to a current customer, depending on where they are in that phase, is very different than you would from a traditional sales, try and bring in a new prospect type of message.
So bringing all that data together and knowing where they are in the cycle and giving them the right message at the right time on the right device for us is key to managing that.
And those marketing folks, how do they coordinate with the traditional marketing activities that you have running,
yeah,
relative
so
to
they
new
dotted line into our traditional marketing folks. I mean, we have, as you might imagine with a large company, there's a lot of matrix or organizations going on. But we also have a group that oversees customer experience as well. And they are really chartered with auditing the end-to-end customer experience. So my group will, for example, every week in my staff meeting, we'll go over the top 5 customer experience issues. And they could be anywhere. They could be at the very beginning of our website. It's like, this actually doesn't translate well in Japan. All the way to the end, like, hey, we're getting a lot of complaints, or the forums are going crazy about this particular issue. And so that entire lifecycle journey is really important to oversee.
And one other follow-up on that, are you guys, those marketing folks, are they leveraging any kind of automation, just like you would leverage marketing automation at the front end?
Yeah, we love to automate. So that's our, that's marketing's continual goal. That's really Adobe's continual goal, is to automate more and more of the processes. So, that's what our marketing cloud is all about, is automating those processes and really doing A/B testing, setting triggers with something like inside of Gainsight, where we pull the data together in the dashboard, and then having different campaigns go out depending on what we're seeing. If we're not seeing active use in this segment, we'll send out a different message than someone that maybe is hyperactive. What's going on there? Maybe that's an upsell opportunity.
Makes sense. Thank you. And Marcus, you guys as Zendesk obviously are focused in a very similar area here as leading company in the area of customer support. How do you guys think about managing scale? You obviously have a large number of customers. How do you think about it, and particularly given that you're very much a modern company, you've grown up, in recent years, how much of that have you built in natively to the actual service that you're delivering?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think we've evolved to supporting the larger enterprise customers over the last couple of years. So as we look at our customer success organization, we've pulled that together, through that life cycle. Again, we started with the data. As we looked at our customer support data and where they were having, challenges post-trial, it was around things like launch and getting stuff set up. And so that was our first step, is we implemented what we call launch guidance. And that launch guidance scales everywhere from our getting started guide, which is productized implementation. So what used to be a $10,000 or $20,000 customer service implementation is now in the product, and you can set up a full contact center in 30 minutes. It evolved then for some people who needed some basic hand-holding and wanted remote best practices, all the way up to the traditional enterprise implementation that we have now. Our second pillar that we've focused on in customer service is then the ongoing, more around the retention and loyalty side, which we call our mentor services. This is focused on, at a tactical level, on an admin leaves, and they need to train someone new. It might be a review of business rules, and then up to the strategic side, where a new exec comes in and they're like, hey, how do I align and segment my customers, and am I spending too much time on customers of small revenue, or should I be spending more time on my high-end customer revenues? Or it might be, I'm new and I'm looking for an outside-in assessment around customer effort, and where are those opportunities to improve. So we kind of think about it in those in kind of those two key areas, as far as how we map either from technology with things like in-product messaging, IPM, which is becoming more and more common in all of our technologies, or whether it's the advanced analytics of segmented campaigns and marketing automation.
And as it relates to in-product messaging, inside your organization, how does some of that effort get prioritized relative to classic product roadmap and product features, and how does the customer success organization participate in setting some of those requirements and getting those requirements into the hands of the product organization? Yeah,
that's really for us, it's at Zendesk, it's a partnership with both marketing and product. So from a customer success group, we would be sharing those. From our customer advocates, they would be sharing those. And then marketing will run those in-product message campaigns. and it might be best practice, maybe it's new features that we're looking for adoption on, where we're trying to share that innovation, like understand and being able to segment, maybe customers are on a certain plan and not using all the functionality. So it's more for customer success to share where we see those opportunities, and then we partner with marketing who executes.
And does marketing have dedicated headcount focused specifically on this set of capabilities? You know, getting the messaging out, trying to drive usage. It sounds like, Kevin, in your organization, those folks are inside the customer success organization. Are there dedicated folks in marketing that are focused on usage and driving that as opposed to some of the other marketing activities?
For Zendesk, it falls within kind of the same customer nurture program. Yep. So for us, in-product messaging is just a different medium. Got it. Different channel. So it's a part of that life cycle.
Got it. Kevin, you were about to comment?
Yeah, so we have marketing folks inside customer success that are really focused on the active use messaging, but then we have an entirely different group, and they work together on kind of the prospects and cross-sell and upsell, which will, again, in-product messaging is extremely beneficial. You know, it's probably the most successful marketing that we do at Adobe because it's contextual and it's at the right time, and hopefully you're talking about something that's relevant versus a random banner ad on a website. So the product teams, marketing, customer success, engineering, everyone is totally bought into in-product messaging as a benefit to the customer and a benefit to us.
And Olga, how do you guys think about in-product messaging? How's that managed? Who thinks about the content and the frequency and segmentation around that for you guys?
I'd say we have two primary modes of kind of interaction or engagement on these topics. One is, like with you guys, on the online revenue operations team, we have folks who could be called marketers elsewhere, who are focused on building campaigns, marketing campaigns to our pro users and our Dropbox for Business users that are focused on upsell and retention. So in those cases, we do that, and then we interact with marketing and product, but mostly marketing in those cases when to make sure that the content makes sense and that the overall brand thing is actually followed. Another way of interaction for us internally on these campaigns or any kind of customer engagement is when it's clear that the subject matter is very cross-functional. To give you an example, onboarding or trial conversion. Many teams inside of Dropbox care about those pieces. And so, for example, for onboarding, or let's take trial conversion, product certainly cares that the in-product experience is good. Product also helps us build tools so that marketers and online revenue operations folks can actually, at scale, expose things to the customer without having to go to product every time. Marketing cares that those trials are converted. And we care to talk to customers during the trial because this is when we start onboarding them, because for those of them that convert, and we hope that's the majority, that was actually their first 2 weeks of product usage as opposed to pre-sale. It really is kind of both pre-sale and post-sale. So in those kinds of cases, we will pull together a cross-functional working team where representatives from each function actually meet on some kind of regular weekly, bi-weekly basis and discuss things and map them out.
That's great. No, very, very interesting stuff. One of the topic I want to make sure we cover is data, and all of you have mentioned data analysis, segmentation. One of the benefits and one of the values that customer success brings is this function has the richest amount of data on the customer, and particularly with subscription products, you have usage data in a way that historically was very hard to get. How do you guys think about data? How do you access it? What do you do with it? Olga, you mentioned you have a team of, I think, 10 folks that are data analysts inside the customer success organization. I'd love to hear how you guys think about data and how it's leveraged, not only within your organization, but across some of these other functions.
I can start. So yes, we have a team of 10, and why we have a team of 10, which sounds like a lot, is because at the scale that we're operating at, we couldn't possibly make good decisions without having deep understanding of what's actually happening to the customer, each customer, and at scale to the customer base. To be fair, it's not the data that we kind of control or own. It is usage data that anybody in the company can have access to. But we are, I think the team did analysis at some point, and we collectively are some of the top users of Hive in the company because we do a lot of queries. And so essentially all experiments, all campaigns are done using data because otherwise we can't do it. We try to use data to A/B test things where A/B testing makes sense, even for high-touch things where A/B testing may or may not be an appropriate solution. We always try to get the data first so that it informs what it is we're trying to do. And then a separate way or another way of obviously using the data is for kind of higher level insights, for measuring things, so to understand what is our churn rate, what is our renewal rate, what is our upsell rate, when do people, what kinds of, the team builds predictive modeling to understand, to assign health scores to customers that we can then use in various campaigns, and also to just expose the various cohorts, expose the regional differences, et cetera, et cetera.
And maybe you could share a story in terms of this data team. What's maybe one example, something creative or interesting or not obvious that you guys learned or did or took action on as a result of your data team?
So this is just not necessarily the best, but kind of close and close to the top of my head. When speaking about these trial customers, these are Dropbox for Business customers who go through a free trial, and then some of them convert and some of them don't. We've been working on this program of how do we reach out to them and how do we onboard them better, how do we explain to them what Dropbox does, and then hopefully increase the conversion rate. And so originally when we started that program, unfortunately the control results seemed to be better than the treatment results. We're like, wait a second, that doesn't make a lot of sense, because fundamentally we believe that we're adding value. It can't be that we're not. And then through refinement of data and through kind of very precise questions to the data, it became clear that not all trial customers are created equal. Some trial customers kind of sign up with what we would call a consumer domain, so yahoo.com, AOL.com. And you can infer from that, and also looking at the data, that their intent of actually purchasing the product is probably lower on average than somebody signing up with a business domain. Another trigger we found that was very interesting was the number of characters in the name of the team. When you sign up for a trial, you actually name your team. And it turns out, again, not surprisingly, that if the name of your team has 1 or 2 or 3 characters, the chances that you're serious about this are not very high. And so once you start kind of segmenting this user base and start talking to the people who you think actually have intent, then suddenly the program actually has effect, because you're talking to the people who want to talk to you. So that's just one small example.
No, that's great. Thank you. And Kevin, how about you? I mean, how do you guys think about, obviously Adobe is a pioneer in the area of using data and optimization.
So data is critical. So, that is the lifeblood of sales and marketing for us, and I think for a lot of companies. So we have more data than we know what to do with, quite honestly. So the Marketing Cloud does 1 trillion transactions a month. And so we have so much data coming in from so many different product areas that actually we had to create a new role and group within IT for VP of Data and Analytics, just to put some control and structure around all the different product teams and how they would actually go about collecting data in their products. Because there was really, it was kind of a Wild West for a while. We'd have, one product team would say, well, that's user ID. Another one would just call it user. Another would call it user_ID. And you bring all this data in and you can't make sense of it. So you need structure around it. So we've got kind of our VP of Data and Analytics on IT to kind of provide structure for both the data as well as the systems. And then we've got, in marketing, we have marketing data and personalization that kind of bring all that data in and really think about how to segment it, how frequently do we message, let's A/B test here within those 2 groups. But the data is critical, and we rely on it so much. Interesting story was, just the other week, we had one of my people on the web that monitors our products and is doing web marketing and looking at all the data, saw a big drop-off in Germany. And it's like, okay, something's wrong. So it kind of really pulled the cord there. And what had happened is we had pushed out new tax rates Something totally different on IT side that were, probably like 1,000 times what they were supposed to be, so people stopped buying. But we found that problem within 2 hours. And otherwise, it would have just gone on for days without it. But we actually found it because of the analytics and the dashboarding that we could see a big drop-off in activity.
And just to follow up, since you have, in addition to, large numbers of smaller users and companies, you also have a set of higher touch accounts that you manage. How do you think about data and leveraging analytics, more at the high end of
so
your
at the high end, the active use is really, really important. And so we'll pull that in to monitor how frequently they're using, look for any changes up or down, and then also pull in support calls from Zendesk and bring that into a dashboard. And then based on where they are in terms of that delta, maybe they're like a yellow, we'll spit out an automated message, right, based on whatever their particular trigger was. And we'll start to, maybe engage them in that type of role. And then for our highest tier customers, we'll simply give them a call, right? So based on the tiering of the customer and the activity drop-off, we'll either send a message or give them a call. And certainly for our highest level customers, they have dedicated customer support representatives that would call them.
Can I just add one thing? I
Absolutely.
think one interesting wrinkle to the data is, I think so far we've talked about it, how do we use it internally? The same kind of data, usage data, for example, may be very useful to the customer themselves. So for example, we've recently rolled out a customer dashboard for Dropbox for Business customers where they go into their admin console and they can actually see, my team has created so many shared folders over the last number of months. This is how many people are on my team. This is how they're sharing. This is the connections between them, et cetera, et cetera. So, and you can imagine how that is useful for that admin to know and what is the latest, et cetera, et cetera.
So in effect, almost displaying success metrics externally directly to the customer to give them some guidance on are you using our product correctly or not correctly?
I think it's less about correctly. It's more about, if I'm a customer and I'm paying money for something, I'd like to know how it's doing and like what it is doing, because if it's not exposed to me, I'm like guessing. Let's take the guessing out of it.
That's a really good point, because for us, particularly on the document cloud, that's one of our big value propositions, is that when you send a document, whether it's a contract or a brochure, to someone outside your organization, you lose visibility and control. And the document cloud, one of our main value propositions, is giving you visibility and control, right? You can see where the contract is in the process. Through that, you can give them a call if it's getting slowed down, so that giving the analytics back to the customer is really valuable.
That's great. Marcus, your thoughts? How do you guys think about data and analytics? How do you manage it? Do you have dedicated teams within customer success? And perhaps, likewise, you can share some anecdotes.
Across the company, we have kind of different dedicated teams. We do have a really great deployment of good data, where we have all the product data and usage. We've got support data. We got sales and marketing data that allows us to see that. So when we think about the data on the front end, when someone signs up for a trial on Zendesk.com, it's about their usage and how they're consuming it, and that allows us to give a score that then determines, hey, should we reach out to them sooner? We also have things where our support team will interact in chat to then maybe take what was a self-service for someone who looks like a really high user and add a little extra touch if they want to interact with one of our support representatives. So there's a scenario where we're actually using our support advocates as part of a trial experience, getting that most useful person there and thinking about customer success up front in the pre-sale cycle before they come in. After we then bring a customer in, it's about the launch and getting them set up, understanding are they using the best practices and using the functionality in their plan. And then that kind of carries post life cycle and into the ongoing relationship, which is, in the traditional churn prevention on, do they have 100 seats and they're using 10? Or on the positive side, we use the analytics to say, wow, they've added, doubled their workflow, something's going on in the business. Or we've had a massive ticket spike, something's going on in their business, and how can we help them in that scenario? And then those all come back to, then the support side, where are the functionalities, where are we doing good, where can we do better? So then I think similarly on extending it out, for Zendesk customers, what we found is about half of our customers agree to anonymize the data for usage metrics. So customers can see how they compare to people in their industry, so across retailers or within their size, to then understand how they're running their business. And are they ahead of the curve, or are there areas for improvement? And then that then brings them into the community to ask for help.
And you said what percentage of the customers have agreed to anonymize their data?
It's about half.
Wow, that's impressive. So, and literally what they get in return then is the benchmarking relative to their peers.
Absolutely. So you'll, a VP of customer service would log in and say, how's our average handle time? How's our first contact resolution rate? How's our CSAT or net promoter? And then they can benchmark themselves across that. And then from there, usually questions come on either wanting to share what they're doing well or ask how to get help. And then the customer success experience continues into the community. One of the other things that we really do to focus on customer success and loyalty and retention is our Zen universities. And so last quarter, we trained 2,200 people in 40 cities at no cost. And it was really almost more of a commitment to fund and train agents. And, a happy agent will be a happy Zendesk. And so kind of making that commitment, I think, is a different way to democratize training and not always charge for every aspect.
That makes sense. No, those are great, great stories. Why don't we shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about growth and how do you think about using the customer success function, the data, the metrics to drive upsells and cross-sells, and what's the involvement and interaction between the customer success organization and the traditional growth functions in sales and marketing. So any one of you who wants to start, would love to hear more about that topic.
Take a crack at it. So it is really important to close that circle. So there's a tight working relationship between customer success, sales, and marketing. Because the more and more you go into subscription business, you're going to get a lot of your money from your existing customers, and you're going to grow that base, and you're going to cross-sell, right? And then part of the selling outside of that will be from customer advocacy, right? So we'll use, for example, Gainsight to do our NPS scores, right? Automate that, and then feed that into a funnel into marketing so that we can get good customer case studies, so they no longer have to panic at the end of the quarter when I say, where are all the case studies? They've got a regular pipeline that they can follow. And then based on some of the things I said before, based on active usage, we can start to market for either upsell or cross-sell within a company. So if we see good usage and we tie in some data from our marketing cloud that says, hey, there's another group within Ford Motor Company that is plugging around our website for this, let's go use our advocate that we have to go do a demo for them and do a call on a new product, for example, or a new area that they're interested in. So that can lead to expansion as well. So a lot of different cross-sell, upsell coordination is tightly coordinated to really make it work.
And the point you made about the NPS score feeding right into marketing for the case studies, I mean, that's incredibly powerful. I mean, I know my days in enterprise software, we were constantly using the same 3 references over and over and over again. And the fact that you can build that pipeline is amazing. So I assume that same process is used for sales references as well?
Yeah, exactly. It's really trying to automate that process so we don't burn out any one set of customers and we bring in new customers. And of course, you're always trying to look for the most relevant customer. So, even if it's a food shop, that's great. It's a restaurant that may not be as good as, well, it's actually a pizza shop. And maybe that's the most relevant one for your customer that you want to talk to. So bringing that pipeline and keeping it fresh in an automated way is really helpful, and it brings some sanity to that process.
And are you able to bring in, real-time information into that? I know there are many cases where some customer might be a great reference, but you know what, today is not the day to use this particular customer.
That's exactly, that's where Gainsight does help us, because it brings in, all the data, it brings in the active usage and the support calls so that we can see, okay, well, there's a red outstanding ticket. Let's fix that before we ask them to get on stage with us, right?
That's great. Super helpful. Olga, Marcus?
Yeah, so in terms of upsell, we are actually responsible for upsell for our SMB customers on the Dropbox for Business side, and there we use both, as I mentioned before, marketing and sales techniques. So we look at the data and we see, oh, these accounts have a green account health score as defined by our predictive analytics team. By the way, they are also at 100% provision rate, which probably also contributed to them being green in the first place. And what we also know is that on that domain, abc.com, there is also a bunch of users of Dropbox that are basic or maybe pro users, but are not part of the Dropbox for Business account yet. So we expose that information to the Dropbox for Business admin, and we say, hey, don't you know you've got these folks in your company very similarly to you actually using Dropbox, but they're not part of the Dropbox for Business account. Wouldn't it be nice for you to bring them in the loop? And we send that either email or follow up with a call, or do the call if it's a larger customer. Very successful. We're calling it the Suggested Members Campaign, descriptive name for this one. And then where we have dedicated account managers on the higher end of our Dropbox for Business customers, that of course is a much more in-person, less in-person, but one-to-one kind of a conversation. And while the team there is focused on retention and keeping the customer happy and doing what needs to be done, they help tee up the conversations for our sales team to come in and talk about upsell. Upsell at renewal is often a good thing, or even upsell during the deployment cycle. And so I would say those are kind of the two main ones. Another very interesting campaign we're doing, so Dropbox has two account plan types. One is monthly, one is annual. And we know that annual customers by definition are stickier and they have a higher lifetime value. And so one of the very successful campaigns that we're doing is reminding monthly folks that they can actually save some money by moving to the annual account because the pricing on that is cheaper. And so that goes out automatically, and we are converting not an insignificant amount of folks from monthly to annual kind of on an automated basis at this point, which I think is very nice. And it's less about immediate kind of ACV impact, but it's more about LTV impact.
That's great. And can you talk a little bit more about, you mentioned at the higher end, you're teeing up the sales force. What form does that take? What information are you passing along to the sales force so they are in a position to successfully upsell that account or close a larger deal?
It's literally a conversation between the two folks, between an account manager on our team and a salesperson who was originally part of that sale or who is substituting them at this point, and they together have that conversation. So there's not much rocket science to it.
Yep, makes sense. Great.
Yeah. With our team, it's they're tied at the hip. It's critical. If we look at our elite plan customers, as part of that plan, they get a assigned customer success executive. There are also SLAs and SLOs, service level responses, from the advocate organization. So the advocate group, the customer success executive, and the account manager are very closely aligned on where that counts at any current time. As we think about upselling, and as that customer's growing, right, it's around understanding what are they using, what's their latest product success score, what new features or functionality have rolled out as part of their plan. Through that, they may find they want to implement a new channel and offer chat as a channel. Well, then they'll partner with the launch part of the customer success team, who will then take that, get them up and going, and make sure they get live successfully. Over the course of the year, as the customer success executive and the account manager are doing like quarterly business reviews where we're lining on, strategically, what are we trying to do? What are the projects over the next 90 days? And then how will we judge our success or failure? We may find that, they lose an admin or they're looking to get more insights, and then our mentor programs will come back in. So within our kind of the three pillars of our customer success, it kind of depends where they're at in the life cycle. Yep. But customer success is core to, whether it's helping as a customer grows, or whether, it's like an Adobe where there's, 25 different deployments, and some big and some small, and looking to help different parts of the org.
And are any of you incorporating any kind of data science as you think about cross-selling and upselling? I mean, particularly when I think about Adobe, just the range of products you have, is there any guidance that you give the salespeople, in any kind of intelligent way to say, hey, look, this customer is using these products, they're this kind of company, this is their usage pattern, this is not only the right time to think about an upsell or cross-sell, but here's exactly what you might want to recommend.
Yeah, data science is really becoming an increasingly large part of our analytics group, and really trying to really look in and get insight from all that data. So for example, we know that on the Creative Cloud, the highest indicator of renewal is actually Acrobat usage, right? And so you may not think of that normally, but at least I'm rationalizing, it kind of makes sense that they probably are communicating outside their group to their customers, so they have customers, so they're going to renew. That's a good sign. So little things like that can really help in terms of providing insight. Other data science will do is terms of upgrades. When was the last time they bought in terms of a large company? And then mirroring that with Windows refresh upgrades as well, and saying, okay, this is a good time. They're probably in their refresh cycle. And we can kind of more or less predict that reasonably accurate to go in and have a large consolidation deal talk for large companies around, you know, let's refresh your Acrobat seats and do multi-million-dollar deals at the right time. And that's relatively predictive.
That's great. Olga, Marcus, any application of data science and predictive capabilities in this arena?
Yeah, definitely, all the time, all the way. So very similarly, our account health scores are based on, you know, a model that looks at the historical data, and it shows you the top 10 actions that are valuable, that we know if customers are doing them, they're likely to renew. So then you have to make a bit of a leap of faith and say, I'm going to go out and try to influence customers who are not making these actions right now to do those actions, and I hope that if they do them, they will renew, which of course you have to still kind of, you know, confirm, because that's not a given. And this is the basic approach we use. So for example, we know that if customers, in Dropbox's case, if customers are sharing folders, that's a very good indication, because this is one of the primary kind of sticky features of the product. We know that if customers have the product installed on multiple devices, that's another very good sign, because again, they're getting the most out of Dropbox and they probably see the value of it too. And so a lot of our campaigns are based on that. And what's interesting about us is also in the pro space, we just talk to the end user, and in the Dropbox for Business space, you know, we're talking to the admin on the account, but then we also have the end users who are doing or not doing certain actions. And so we have kind of two audiences that we want to expose this data to and talk to them about that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, you know, for Zendesk, when we support mid-market and enterprise customers, we usually find that we really align with innovative companies that are constantly, you know, adopting and changing and evolving. So one big indicator for us is, you know, for example, lack of support tickets. If we see our bigger customers stop submitting tickets, it means they don't have questions and they're not needing help, which is kind of a disengagement. So that's a big one for us that we look at. And then we also look at some of our different plan types, because there are some logical feature functions where it's less about upselling them, but it's more about making sure they're in the right plan for what their needs are. And as they scale quickly, anything that bursts, you know, usually has some capacity or some functionality where they're going to need more control to make sure that it scales appropriately and doesn't end up creating something that makes it hard to evolve later.
And would you move a customer down to a cheaper plan if you thought that was more in line with their usage pattern?
Customers do that all the time. They may find they've chosen one, you know, because we have you know, a good percentage of our customers on month to month. So we're up for that re-election every month. And we'll see customers that'll move up. You know, hey, I signed up on the enterprise plan. Maybe I didn't need all that functionality, and now I went back down to the plus plan, for example.
Makes sense. The next topic I wanted to touch on with the panelists was thinking about advocacy marketing, referral marketing. Obviously, we live in a world now with social media and various forums and blogs where, you know, your best customers are in some ways your best salespeople, and even if you don't ask them to, they're oftentimes talking about your product and service externally and generating new business for you. How do you guys think about referral marketing, advocacy marketing, leveraging your best customers to tell their peers, tell their friends, bring in more leads into your sales and marketing funnel?
Yeah, you know, this is one of the things we talk about on our earnings call here that we did last week, is the amount of organic leads that we get on a quarterly basis. And we've been very fortunate to have a very large customer base. And this drives a lot of the high adoption rate and high usage rate of trials. I referenced earlier the Zen universities. This is a big part of that, which is keeping agents trained and allowing them to then reach out and tell the story of how fast they got live, how fast they innovated, how it was able to help them run their business better. And so, that kind of version of field marketing, but one, driving upsell, two, driving new business, and then three, keeping a strong retention rate is core to that.
And is there anything you do proactively to try and encourage some of those happiest customers to send you a referral, to tell their friends about it, get you in front of some of their peers?
Yeah, within our customer success team on our enterprise customers, we have our Inspire program, which is really around bringing together a lot of our top directors and VPs in a specific vertical, in a specific city, and allowing them to talk and share. Because a lot of it isn't just about, hey, how do I use Zendesk? It's, how do I do follow the sun support, right? How do I go from a cost center to a profit center? How do I do live chat? Because that's really scary. I don't know what volume it's going to be. So a lot of that is getting those customers together to share those stories. Then from that, we become a trusted advisor to them, and then they're out there telling for us.
That's great.
Yeah, and just real brief, I mentioned before we use the NPS data to get the pipeline of customer case studies, for example, that we can use for material for sales or for speaking engagements. And then some of the other things we'll do is have customer advisory boards at a nice place and bring them together as kind of an encouragement to do some of the things that Marcus talked about in terms of just sharing different problems they're having that may be more industry related that they could share and stuff. We haven't gone heavily into an automated, purely automated customer. We played around with it a little bit where, okay, there's a little incentive if you do this, and you got to be careful. You don't want to be too corny, and so you got to be really careful with that. But that's probably something that we'll look into as the next wave.
How about you, Olga?
Yep. On the highest end of our customers, we have a similar program that's run out of our sales team. It's basically an advisory board. Folks meet in specific cities in a kind of informal fashion. And yes, it's less about I use Dropbox. It's more about let's just meet and talk, and we're all in it together. Very successful. Dropbox as a company and as a product has benefited greatly from referrals early on. This is part of the kind of the story where you could get a little bit of extra space, extra free space if you invited your friends and family to the point where at this point I think there's nobody I know who doesn't have Dropbox, because I was a cheapskate before I joined the company and got all the space, and I invited everybody and got all the space. And so referrals are kind of in our blood from the very early days on the product side. The other thing I'll mention, and this is less about using the power of your user base for selling, but the communities, right? We are now with Zendesk piloting kind of a V2 of communities where we have super users, and we've got 10 of them today, and I think they're collectively responding to like 65% of all of our other users' questions on communities, right? Which is phenomenal. These are people who we don't pay money to. These are just enthusiasts of Dropbox who go out there and help us kind of curate this community, which is awesome.
Yeah, what's fascinating to me is all three of you mentioned, physical events to bring together some of your best customers. I mean, obviously we're in an online digital world. You guys all sell digital products, software-based products, but sort of like today's event, it sounds like you all feel there's value in physically bringing together some of your best advocates in one room.
Yeah, very much so. I think our customer advisory boards, and we do them in different places around the world, are some of the most beneficial for our customers and for us. Because it's really only there that we can get true insights into some of their challenges. Simply product usage and customer support tickets aren't going to really get to the underlying issues of maybe your next wave of opportunity with that customer. So having that face-to-face conversation and listening to them talk with their peers in other industries is really helpful and probably one of my most favorite events to attend.
We've had, in addition to these customer advisory board type things, we also have a program, we're calling it descriptively again, Customer Breakfast, where it's a collaboration between the product team and the customer success team, where we literally invite folks across the board, actually, from basic to pro to Dropbox for Business, to come and meet the product team. And so the meetings are a breakfast, and there will be like 7 or 8 customers in the room and a bunch of folks from Dropbox. Incredibly useful every single time, definitely for us to hear how people are using it. And we ask very simple questions. What do you like about the product? What do you not like about the product? Tell us, really. And also, I've noticed that folks in the room who are the customers also enjoy hearing from each other, and they start asking each other questions. Oh, you're using it this way? Oh, I didn't know I could do that. And they're like, how about that? So it becomes a conversation rather than a one-way customer to Dropbox kind of a story.
People still like to talk to people, so that still always resonates. I think on the digital side, where we also see kind of traditional marketing techniques drive up awareness and our customers becoming advocates, is kind of the adjacent use of our product. So one of our #1 downloads is the top 10 interview questions for customer service agents. So it's not necessarily about how to use Zendesk, it's how do I hire a great support agent, and then that best practice and use case of doing a manager or a director's job is then passed on to someone else, which then brings them back to Zendesk to inform that as well. So anywhere you can look at those little best practices that help someone do their job better, in addition to use your technology, always goes over well.
That's great. No, it makes a lot of sense. And I remember it was early days of Salesforce. They would have these events in local cities where you'd go and they'd rent out a bar and they'd have a handful of their customers up at the front of the bar talking about, this was Salesforce was tiny, and it was amazing how powerful that face-to-face physical type of event, certainly on a local scale. So I think that's a very powerful technique. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to make sure we have some time for audience questions. I think there's a mic here roaming around, and so any questions for the panelists, just raise your hand and grab the mic. Come on, there's got to be something people want to ask this amazing group. Anyone? I know people are busy on Twitter and other things on their phones, but no questions? All right, I'm going to ask one more question then. We've talked about the interaction between customer success and sales and marketing. What about product? And how does product and your product organization, how much time do they spend with customer success? How deep do they go into some of this data that you're collecting? How does this flow back and forth to the product organization?
Yeah, at least for us, on our services part of my organization, product actually sits right next to customer success. So that's one of the great ways to learn about what the customer is really saying, right, and what their issues are. So I think the tie that is often overlooked is really the question you're asking, which is product and customer success have a lot of synergy and a lot to communicate with each other, but often they're very separated in organizations and they don't really interact. They'll do the customer councils, et cetera, they'll listen to forums, but they won't sit down with customer success as much. I think one of the things that helps, quite frankly, for us is the use of Gainsight on our services, because there's some order to it. There's a nice way to see what's going on, and then you can drill down from there. And it really just helps make product more efficient when they're seeing how many customers are asking for this similar thing or having that similar problem.
It gives you some more quantified metrics. And
Exactly.
An interesting factoid about Dropbox is that Arash Ferdowsi, who's our co-founder, was our first customer success person, because there were 2 of them, and he was the customer success person, and he answered those tickets, and he still talks fondly about how that knowledge informed why Dropbox worked so well as a product in the early days and continues to do that. So I think there's a couple of layers or levels on which we engage with product. One is bug reports. We talk to the customers every day, and some of them say, there is this thing that's not working, and sometimes it's not an actual bug, sometimes it's something about their setup, sometimes it's a feature, and they think it's a bug, but sometimes it's an actual bug. And so we have a tier 2 team on the support end whose job it is to figure out, is it a bug or not, and then pass it over to our product specialist team, who then pass it on to product. Fun metric, the team just pulled the numbers, and last quarter, 33% of these things that were submitted as bugs were resolved within the same week, and 66 were resolved within the same quarter. So they're real things that are happening, and I know that our product and eng teams will love that, because basically, as you said before, we wouldn't have heard about them for maybe a month if the customers didn't tell us. So that's one, and that's probably the most obvious layer. Then there's features, right? Because customers say, why don't you have this? This is confusing. This button is not what I expect it to be. And so that's where we're still working, and it's always work in progress, on a process to pass that information on to product in a way that's digestible, that is prioritized, et cetera. Finally, when we talk about, well, I guess two more things. When we talk about experiences such as trials, conversion, or onboarding, or something like that, it's definitely a cross-functional conversation. You can't think of email campaigns to onboard customers in isolation from what they're seeing in product, because then you get two completely different messages, and that's just not good. You should be reinforcing. It should be a multi-channel kind of a discussion. Lastly, we're currently embarking on a project where we actually bring in the product team a lot closer together with us to collectively, jointly define what kind of service levels, for example, are we going to provide to customers based on segment, so that it's not just a decision by the customer success team, but that product is bought in, involved, believes that these are the right things, and can also help kind of us do those things. So I would say those four things.
That's great.
Yeah, I would say there's kind of three key areas. One, we're a product and success company, so for us, trial conversion is very important. So our product team spends significant amount of time in our Getting Started guide going through the 12 steps to set up a multi-channel contact center, and we can see where customers either have success or have challenges, and we're constantly ordering and adjusting and figuring out how to make that work better. Second, on voice of the customer, with our Net Promoter Score, we look at not just the admin Net Promoter, but we get feedback from agents on the Net Promoter, and from the owner, because we have those profiles when someone signs up. So we get three very different three sets of information on different use cases for it. In addition to that, it's about transparency in the company and not just products. So we use Yammer for internal collaboration, and we post the CSATs that comes after a ticket into Yammer, and so the whole company sees that. And you have to be very open and understand that's not like attacking support, it's not attacking product, it's about solving for the customer. So it is out there in the world to see, right, within our Yammer, when we do good and when we do bad. But a lot of it isn't about product, sometimes it's about a process that we have that's causing that challenge. And then third, on our enterprise customers, it is around aligning with our customer success executive, and they're bringing forward, hey, here are the key features, and then customer success puts together a group that meets with, or a complete list to meet with dev monthly on what's that top customer request list.
Makes sense. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but hopefully, today you got some great nuggets from this group of executives, and certainly for me, my takeaway from the panelists are a couple things. Number one, it starts with the data, and all of you as customer success executives are sitting on a gold mine of information about your customers. I think second, it's being able to leverage, I think as Olga had mentioned, these techniques that are true in operations and marketing and sales inside the customer success function, so you can segment your customers, you can automate a lot of the communication, one-to-many communications. I think that's really important. And then the third piece that both Marcus and Kevin talked about is now how do you take that information in a systematic, automated way and push that into marketing, push that into sales, so that you can leverage the strength of your customer success around advocacy, around upsells, and around cross-sells. So I'd like to ask the audience to give our panelists a round of applause for their time. Olga, Kevin, Marcus, thank you so much. And hopefully everyone got some great value out of it, and I assume all of you will be around for a little bit to answer further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.